Hello, everyone, and welcome to our last conversation related to EV battery manufacturing. Today, I am here still with Lucas, and we will be talking about track and trace applications. So let me start by asking a question about definition, because I think track and trace is a very broad topic, and I think we should try to define what it is for automotive manufacturing, or more specifically for EV batteries. So could you define it?
So hello again, Piotr. Nice to see you again and happy to be here once again. That's a very, very good point. This track and trace system is related to what we discussed in one of our previous episodes related to the battery passport. Because if you remember, for the battery passport, it was important to have all the visibility along the whole value chain in the battery manufacturing, starting from raw materials to disposal. Now, if we talk about EV, so module, battery pack assembly, and track and trace for this specific system, the idea is to have also the full visibility, so to collect the data from every kind of machine at every moment for also every steps. So we are talking, for example, about screwing, gluing, etc. Every steps, everything has to be monitored. Data has to be collected to know what happened, what we did, how we did it, etc. And those data need to be stored in a secure system to be available again for this battery passport to comply with those future requirements. I can mention one example in other industry still related to EV battery, which is in automotive, where we already put in place such system, where you collect the data, for example, screwing of electric motors, that you need to collect the torque you applied. Those are quality information. So this technology, this system are already in place. So it's not new, but now we have to apply that to EV battery module assembly.
But it seems like we are coming back to the importance of data that we discussed quite deeply in our live podcast. And it seems this topic of how you collect the information and how you use it becomes extremely important across different applications, across different industries. So for me, it seems with this topic, we are coming back to the importance of data that we discussed quite deeply in our live conversation some time ago. So it seems the way how you use the data that you probably already have in the factory really matters, and that this topic is gaining importance in different applications, different industries. So, considering your current experience, could you explain what is the perfect track and trace system in your opinion?
Thank you, Piotr, and you are correct. We discussed this point already during our previous live podcast, but also in our previous episode when we were talking about the standardization framework. So data format standardization is probably the very first point when we want to talk about the perfect track and trace system, because it allows to have standard and common understanding across the whole manufacturing process. So that's the first point. If we look at the second point, it would be like what I call a successful integration. So to have open, secure, and transparent real-time data collection to ensure that those are available, collected in the same way, in real time, from the different machines, applications, process, production line. Having this information, then I would like to remind also one of the previous topics we discussed about analytics and data science, because this will allow to have the better, understanding of this data that we collect from those machines.
When you are talking about standardization, especially of the data formats and so on, do you believe that this kind of track and trace design would be possible in brownfield applications as well?
That's a good point. It's currently totally feasible in brownfield application. We already have some examples that have been implemented in the traditional automotive industry, where we collect the data, implemented some technologies to allow this data collection in real time, store them in the premises, in the customer location, but also in the cloud. for different purposes. Because before I mentioned that we use data science and analytics. There are different also objectives and benefits here. First would be the collection of that data as they are. So those will be stored, as I say, to comply with the battery passport and so on. But to improve your manufacturing process, you need to analyze, apply some analytics, etc. So yes, this is something you can apply in brownfield, but also in new applications. And we already have some examples with traditional car makers where this data that have been collected were used, for example, to improve the quality of the car and reduce the number of recalls. The example is quite simple. As long as this data have been collected, when there is an issue with a car and the customer, the company, the car maker need to recall these cars, it will be now possible to really target those cars that we think had these issues. So instead of recalling, that's an example, 100,000 cars, we'll maybe simply recall 100 or 1,000. So this will contribute to a better quality and reduce the cost of non-quality consequently for this industry. The other benefits we see is that I mentioned, and I was talking about this battery passport. So having these possibilities implemented now will ensure that you are ready for the battery passport. When this will be implemented, when this will enter in force, you will be able to already comply with these requirements and provide everything what is necessary to have this battery passport in place.
So the track and trace system seems to respond to the current challenges, like, for example, being able to track the faulty products, for example, but it also affects the future of this industry because, it will allow you to create a system that is compliant with battery passports, right?
This is correct. There are initial, I would say, requests related to, as I said, quality. It can be used also for predictive maintenance. And the second part is, as you mentioned, to comply also with the future requirements. And again, I believe that battery industry is the first that will require this, full traceability along the whole value chain. But it will be probably necessary to duplicate this example also to other industries. So once again, automotive is, leading this kind of progress when it comes to digitalization of the manufacturing.
Lucas, last question. So we are pretty much done with the discussion about the EV battery manufacturing. Shall we schedule another meeting to discuss something else?
There are many topics that will be discussed, in this EV industry. So happy to schedule as much as we can.
Thank you very much, Lucas. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure too, Piotr.